Plant these vegetables together, and you will harvest more. There is one thing most gardeners either do not know at all or have only heard about in passing, but never actually put into practice. And it is not some new fertilizer, not an expensive treatment, and not a secret growing technique. It is something much simpler. It is about how exactly you arrange plants in your garden bed. Because it turns out that some vegetables are practically made to grow next to each other. They help one another grow faster, repel pests, improve the flavor of the harvest, and protect against disease. Other combinations, on the contrary, suppress their neighbors and pull the same nutrients from the soil, leaving both with nothing. Today, we will look at 5 such pairings that work in your favor. 5 combinations that truly deliver results, proven both by science and by many years of gardening practice. If you are interested in gardening, harvests, and everything connected with them, subscribe right now and leave a like on this video. It really helps, and new gardening materials come out regularly. Let us begin. The first pair is tomatoes and basil. Let us start with the most classic and probably the best-known combination. Tomatoes and basil are not just a beautiful culinary duo on a plate. They are a real partnership that starts working in the garden long before they ever reach your kitchen. Let us begin with why basil affects tomatoes so positively. This fragrant herb releases a whole set of volatile essential oils and compounds into the air and through its roots into the soil. The smell of basil is pleasant for us, but for aphids, thrips, and whiteflies, it is a real disaster. These pests rely on the scent of the plants they want to attack. And when basil stands nearby with its strong aroma, they simply get confused. Their signal system is disrupted, and the pests avoid the bed altogether. But that is not all. There is evidence showing that growing next to basil can actually affect the flavor of tomatoes. The fruits become a little sweeter and a little richer in aroma. The full mechanism is not yet understood, but it is believed to be connected to the volatile compounds basil releases into the surrounding air. Plants sense their environment much more subtly than we are used to thinking. Now let us talk about planting. Basil does not like intense heat and direct midday sun during hot weather. Tomatoes, on the other hand, provide good shade in the lower part of the bush, so both benefit. The tomato shades the basil during the hottest hours, and the basil protects the tomato from pests. It is best to plant basil between the tomato bushes, about 30 to 40 centimeters from each one. This way, its aroma spreads evenly across the whole bed. There is another point that people rarely mention. Basil attracts pollinators. Bees and bumblebees love its flowers, and at the same time they pollinate nearby tomato blossoms. This is especially important in greenhouses, where the flow of pollinating insects is limited. Many greenhouse growers deliberately keep several basil plants for exactly this reason. Another advantage of this pair is space saving. Basil is compact, does not take up much room, and can literally be fitted between the tomatoes without losing useful planting area. This is especially relevant for small gardens and summer plots where every square meter counts. And finally, both plants like similar conditions: warmth, well-drained soil, and regular but not excessive watering. They are comfortable together not only in terms of biological interaction, but also in terms of cultivation. The same care routine is a big advantage when you plan companion planting. After the harvest, do not forget to dig the basil residue directly into the soil. This will further enrich the earth with organic matter and leave behind some of those very compounds that will continue working next season as well. The second pair is carrots and onions. This is another combination with a long history. Gardeners noticed the mutual benefit of these two crops centuries ago, although they did not always understand why it worked. Now we understand it much better. The whole point lies in the specific pests that each plant has. Carrots suffer from the carrot fly. This small insect lays its eggs in the soil next to the roots. The larvae tunnel directly into the carrot, making it unsuitable for food. Onions, in turn, are attacked by the onion fly, which works in a similar way. Only its target is the bulb. And this is where it gets interesting. The smell of onions repels the carrot fly, while the smell of carrots repels the onion fly. This is not a metaphor and not a guess. It is a proven fact. Both flies orient themselves by the scent of their host crop. And when that scent is masked by the smell of a neighboring plant, the insect simply cannot find a suitable place to lay eggs. The result is ideal mutual protection. No chemicals, no netting, and no special covers. Just the right neighboring crop. It is enough to alternate the rows. One row of onions, one row of carrots, then onions again. With this system, neither the carrot fly nor the onion fly can properly orient themselves in the garden bed, and infestation drops sharply. It is also important to remember that the two crops have different root depths. Carrots go deep downward, forming a long root. Onions occupy a more shallow layer of soil. That means they do not compete for nutrients in the same horizon, but rather divide the soil vertically between them. The upper layer works for the onion, the lower one for the carrot. This is one of the reasons why these two plants do not interfere with each other's growth. Their cultivation needs are also very similar. Both like ruchlu, well-structured soil with outstanding water. Both prefer open, sunny places. Their watering needs are alike too, moderate and without overwatering. This makes caring for a mixed bed simple and convenient. There is also another subtle point. As onions grow, their roots slightly loosen the upper layer of soil. This creates better aeration for nearby plantings, including carrots. In well-aerated soil, the root develops more evenly, branches less, and grows with a more marketable shape. After harvesting the onions, the leftover plant material can also be used wisely. Slightly dried onion skins and stem remain spread between the carrot rows, continue to repel pests for several more weeks. The onion smell lasts a long time, and the carrot fly can still detect it. This pair is especially good because both crops occupy the bed during roughly the same period, and there is no conflict in harvest timing. You harvest them both at about the same time, without creating empty gaps in the bed during the height of the season. The third pair is cucumbers and dill. This combination works a little differently from the previous ones. Here, the main mechanism is attracting beneficial insects and creating the right microclimate around the cucumber bed. Dill is one of those plants that is literally full of life during flowering. Its small yellow umbels attract a huge number of insects. Among them are not only bees and bumblebees, which are needed for pollinating cucumbers, but also predatory insects, parasitic wasps, ground beetles, predatory bugs, and other beneficial species. These creatures feed on aphids, mites, and other pests that are especially fond of cucumbers. Dill literally creates a biological shield of beneficial insects next to the cucumber bed. Aphids are one of the main enemies of cucumbers. They suck sap from young leaves and shoots, slow the plant's growth, and spread viral diseases. And it is precisely against aphids that dill works especially well, because the predatory insects attracted by dill hunt aphids, first of all. But it is important to understand one detail. Young dill and cucumbers in the same bed are a good match, but mature dill that is already flowering and forming seeds can slightly suppress cucumbers if it stands too close. So the best option is to plant dill not directly inside the cucumber bed, but along its edges or with a small distance from it. That way, you get all the benefits of attracting insects without the risk of suppressing the main crop. The second important point is spatial structure. Cucumbers usually send their vines across the ground or climb a trellis. Dill grows vertically and remains relatively compact. If your cucumbers are growing on a trellis, dill can be sown on the southern side of the bed. It will not shade the cucumbers, and it will still receive enough light itself. Dill also releases special substances into the soil through its roots that, according to some data, improve the soil microflora. Healthy microflora means a healthier root system, better nutrient uptake, and plants that are more resistant to disease overall. And there is one more benefit, a purely practical one. Dill is a herb you are probably going to grow anyway, so why not combine it with cucumbers and get double value from the same area? You do not spend extra space and do not take on extra costs, but you get free protection for the cucumber bed simply by using smart plant companionship. If you have a greenhouse with cucumbers, dill is especially valuable there. In an enclosed space, pests spread quickly, and natural predators are few. Just a few dill plants inside or near the entrance to the greenhouse can greatly improve the situation with aphids and spider mites. If you are enjoying this video and have already learned something useful, leave a like. It matters. And if you are not subscribed yet, subscribe. There is a lot of useful material here. Let us continue. The fourth pair is cabbage and celery. This pair is a real find for anyone fighting cabbage pests. And cabbage has plenty of them. Cabbage fly, cabbage aphid, cabbage white butterfly, cutworms, and flea beetles. The list of things eager to eat cabbage is quite impressive, and celery handles most of them better than many chemical treatments. Celery has a very strong specific smell. It comes from both the above-ground part of the plant and its roots. This smell acts as a repellent for most cabbage pests. It works especially well against the cabbage white butterfly, the insect that lays eggs on cabbage leaves, after which the caterpillars mercilessly devour them. The butterfly finds cabbage by following the scent of cruciferous plants. When celery stands nearby with its strong aroma, the butterfly has difficulty locating its host and often simply flies away in search of a cleaner-smelling bed. This is especially important in early summer, when the first generation of cabbage whites is actively looking for places to lay eggs. Flea beetles are another enemy of cabbage that do not tolerate growing next to celery. These tiny jumping beetles chew many small holes in the leaves, greatly reducing the plant's appearance and market value. The smell of celery affects them in a similar way. It masks the scent of cruciferous crops and makes it hard for the beetles to orient themselves. Now let us talk about how to plant this pair correctly. Celery is a fairly strong plant that takes up a good amount of space. It should not be planted too close to the cabbage. It is enough to place several celery plants around the perimeter of the cabbage bed or after every 1 or 2 cabbage plants. That is enough to create an aromatic barrier across the entire area. There is one important point in cultivation. Celery likes moister soil than cabbage, so you need to make sure watering is sufficient for the celery, but not excessive for the cabbage. In general, this is manageable if you make the holes for celery a little deeper and mulch the soil around it, keeping the moisture where it is needed. In terms of light and warmth, however, these crops are fully compatible. Both grow well in open, sunny places. Both are temperate climate crops and do not like intense heat. In hot summer periods, both cabbage and celery benefit from a little shade during the hottest hours. Another bonus of this pair is that celery, with its foliage, slightly shades the soil surface around it. This reduces water evaporation and slows the growth of weeds between the plants. It is a small thing, but a pleasant one. Besides, celery is a crop many people hesitate to grow because it can seem difficult. It is demanding in nutrition, moisture, and planting time. But if you are already planning to grow cabbage, adding a few celery plants is not difficult, and the benefit from this companionship is quite noticeable. After the season ends, celery residues incorporated into the soil continue to work. They release compounds into the ground that suppress certain soil pathogens, including those that cause club root in cabbage, one of the most unpleasant diseases for this crop. Regularly using celery as a companion for cabbage gradually improves the health of the soil in that bed. The fifth pair is beans and corn, and now we come to perhaps the most surprising and best studied example of companion planting in history. This pair is thousands of years old. The indigenous peoples of the Americas cultivated corn and beans together long before modern agronomy appeared. They called them two sisters and believed they should grow together, and they were absolutely right, even though they did not know the scientific explanation. Today, we know why it works so well. Corn is a tall, powerful plant with a deep root system. It requires a lot of nitrogen from the soil. As it grows, corn actively consumes this element, and without replenishment, the soil is quickly exhausted. This is where beans come to the rescue. Beans are legumes. On their roots live special bacteria called rhizobia that fix atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into a form available to plants directly in the soil. Simply put, beans produce nitrogen fertilizer right under their feet, and part of that nitrogen inevitably becomes available to the neighboring corn. This is called symbiotic nitrogen fixation, and it is one of the most powerful natural mechanisms for enriching the soil. In this way, beans quite literally feed corn during their own growth. You do not need to apply extra fertilizer. Nature does it for you. Corn also has something to offer in return. Its tall, sturdy stalk serves as a natural support for climbing bean vines. The beans wrap around the corn stalk and rise upward toward the light. They do not need trellises, stakes, or any other supports. Corn takes care of all of that. Saving materials and time on setting up supports is a very practical bonus. At the same time, once the beans climb the stalk, they do not shade the corn ear, because the corn leaves are positioned higher than the main mass of bean foliage. There is enough light for the corn, and the beans use the space around the stalk that would otherwise remain empty. Now let us talk about the soil. Beans root more shallowly in the upper horizon. Corn goes deeper. Once again, we see the same pattern as with carrots and onions. Separation of soil layers and the absence of direct competition for nutrients. There is also an additional effect: leaf cover. Bean leaves cover the surface of the soil around the corn stalks, creating a living mulch. This mulch retains moisture, protects the soil from overheating on hot days, and suppresses weed growth. You need to water and weed less. The beans do it for you. How should this pair be planted correctly? Corn is sown first. You need to give it time to grow to a height of 20 to 25 centimeters before sowing the beans. If you sow them at the same time, the beans will sprout faster and compete with the young corn seedlings. But once the corn is already standing strong, the beans simply begin to use it as a support without suppressing it. As for spacing, beans are sown 2 or 3 seeds around each corn plant, about 15 centimeters from the stalk. This gives them enough room to grow and enough closeness to the support. After the harvest, the bean roots left in the soil continue to decompose and return all the accumulated nitrogen to the ground. That means that next year, the soil in that bed will be noticeably better than if corn had grown there alone. You are effectively improving the land simply by growing the right pair of crops. From a nutritional perspective, this is also a great combination. Corn is rich in carbohydrates, while beans are rich in protein and fiber. Together, they produce a balanced and nourishing harvest from a single bed. It is no surprise that the indigenous peoples of the Americas lived on these two sisters for centuries. This pair works in almost any climate where both corn and beans can be grown. It does not require any special knowledge or complicated techniques. All you need is the correct sowing sequence and the right spacing. Nature will do the rest. And those are the 5 pairs. Now let us sum up and talk about what unites all these combinations, because there is an important shared logic behind them. When we talk about companion planting, we are talking about a principle called natural gardening. The idea is that in nature, nothing grows in isolation. Every plant interacts with its neighbors, with the soil, with insects, and with microbes. In the wild, these interactions form on their own, because the species that can coexist and compete successfully are the ones that remain together. In the garden, we take control of this process with our own hands. We consciously choose neighbors for each crop based on our knowledge of how they interact. And the result is fewer pests, fewer diseases, less need for chemicals, and more harvest from the same area. Tomatoes beside basil produce better tasting fruit and suffer less from pests. Carrots with onions protect each other from their specific flies. Cucumbers with dill attract beneficial insect defenders right from the neighboring bed. Cabbage beside celery repels a whole range of typical pests, while beans and corn create a self-sufficient, almost waste-free growing system in which each crop works for the benefit of the other. Try at least one of these pairs this season. There is no need to rebuild the entire garden all at once. Start with one bed. Watch the results. Most likely, you will be surprised by how simple changes can produce a noticeable effect. Companion planting is not a fashion and not a whim. It is a return to the way real living soil and a real living garden actually work, where everything is interconnected. The more diverse the plants on your plot, the more stable and productive the whole system becomes. Notice that all of the described pairs require no extra expense. You are already growing these crops anyway. The only thing that changes is their placement in relation to one another. The cost of that change is zero, while the result can be very significant. The next time you plan your planting, take a sheet of paper and think about which of your crops could become a good neighbor for another. Do not place together those that compete for the same resource. Look for pairs in which one helps the other. That is the simplest formula for a smart garden. And do not forget, the garden is a living system. It responds to respect and attention far better than it does to chemicals and mechanical interference. The more finely you understand its laws, the more generously it will reward you. If this video was useful, leave a like. That is the best way to say thank you. Share it with someone who loves gardening. This information may help them too. Subscribe to Botanical Vault if you have not done so yet. There is a lot of gardening content here that will help you grow more and grow better. See you in the next video. Yeah,